Billionaire and his son see a poor widow with her babies alone in the snowstorm, until he says, "Come with me." What happens next is unbelievable. The snow fell heavily onto the empty road. The wind pushed the flakes against the black SUV's windshield, creating white swirls that made visibility difficult. Daniel Whitmore drove slowly, his hands steady on the wheel, his eyes focused on the yellow line he could barely see beneath the layer of ice. In the back seat, Noah swung his little legs and hummed softly. 5 years old, messy brown hair, curious eyes that missed nothing. He pressed his face against the window, watching the storm as if it were a spectacle made just for him. "Daddy, the snow is really high," Noah said, his voice full of wonder. "It is," Daniel replied, without taking his eyes off the road. "That's why we need to go slow." The blizzard had started suddenly. They were returning from a routine doctor's appointment in the neighboring town when the sky darkened and the world turned white. Daniel thought about pulling over, waiting for it to pass on, but the road was deserted and there was nowhere to take shelter. Visibility was terrible. Every turn demanded total attention. The silence inside the car was almost comforting, broken only by the sound of the engine and Noah's gentle humming. That's when Noah shouted, "Daddy, there are people there." Daniel instinctively slammed the brakes. The car skidded slightly before stopping completely, the tires fighting against the ice. "Where? Noah!" "There!" The boy pointed to the shoulder of the road, his little finger pressed against the cold glass. Daniel narrowed his eyes and saw it. A small figure, hunched over, half hidden by the white curtain of snow. A woman. She was kneeling by the side of the road, her arms wrapped around something against her chest. The wind whipped her dark hair, and even from a distance, Daniel could see that she was trembling violently. "She's all alone in the snow, Daddy," Noah said, his voice worried. "She's going to freeze." Daniel hesitated. He wasn't the kind of man who stopped for strangers. He had learned over the years of building his empire that kindness could be dangerous, that people lied, that intentions were not always what they seemed. The business world had taught him that with brutal clarity. But then the woman lifted her head, and Daniel saw her face. Pale, exhausted, desperate. There was no pretense there, just pure desperation. And in her arms, 2 tiny children. Babies. "Daddy! She has babies!" Noah was already unbuckling his seatbelt, his little fingers fumbling with the clasp. "Noah, wait!" But the boy didn't wait. He opened the door and ran out into the snow, his heavy blue coat flapping as he fought the wind trying to push him back. Daniel cursed under his breath and got out after his son. The cold immediately cut into his skin. The wind pushed the snow sideways, turning the world into a white blur. Daniel had to strain his eyes to see. Noah was already close to the woman, kneeling in the snow next to her, completely oblivious to the danger of the cold. "Ma'am, are you okay?" The boy's voice was muffled by the wind. The woman raised her eyes to Noah. She was trembling violently, her whole body shaking. Her lips were a dangerous purplish color. In her arms, wrapped in thin and completely soaked blankets, 2 tiny blonde babies with bright eyes tried to cry, but the sound barely escaped their minuscule throats. "Please," she whispered, her voice hoarse and broken. "Help. Them. The babies. Please." Noah looked at the babies, and then, without a second thought, began to take off his own coat. "Noah, no!" Daniel shouted, reaching them and holding his son's arm. "You'll freeze." "But they're small, Daddy," Noah said, completely ignoring his father. He pulled off the coat firmly and placed it over the 2 babies, covering their trembling little bodies with the still warm fabric. "There. Now you'll be warm." Daniel stood still for a second, looking at his son. 5 years old, just 5 years old. Such a simple gesture, so pure, so completely free of calculation or hesitation. So, right. Something shifted inside Daniel's chest. He knelt beside the woman. Close up, she looked even more fragile. Soaked clothes clung to her body. Hands chapped from the cold, her fingers nearly blue, deep-set eyes filled with a fear that went beyond the cold. It was the fear of someone who has already lost everything. "What happened?" Daniel asked, taking off his own jacket and placing it over her shoulders. She shook her head, unable to form words. Her teeth chattered so much she couldn't control it. She just squeezed the babies against her chest and began to cry silently, tears rolling down her frozen face. "Daddy, we have to take her with us," Noah said, urgently tugging on his father's sleeve. "She's going to die here. And the babies too." Daniel looked around. There were no houses, no lights. There was absolutely nothing but snow, wind, and biting cold. The road was deserted. If he left her there, she would truly die, and the babies too, there was no doubt. He took a deep breath, feeling the cold air burn his lungs. "Come with me," he said, extending his hand to the woman. She looked at him with suspicion. She didn't take his hand. She just hugged the babies tighter, as if she thought he might snatch them away from her. "I won't hurt you," Daniel said, keeping his voice firm but gentle. "But if you stay here, you'll freeze, all of you. Let me help." The woman looked at the babies, at Noah, who smiled at her with that innocence only children possess, at Daniel. And then, with a tired and hesitant movement, she accepted his hand. Daniel helped her up. She could barely stand, her legs shaking so much they almost gave way. He held her arm firmly and began to guide her toward the car. Noah ran ahead, fighting the wind, opening the back door. "Sit here, ma'am," the boy said, trying to help however he could. The woman got into the car, trembling so much it looked like she might shatter. Daniel carefully took the babies. They were so light, so impossibly fragile, and handed them back to her. Noah got in on the other side and sat very close, as if wanting to share his own body heat. Daniel got into the driver's seat, turned the heater up high and started driving. The silence inside the car was thick, heavy. Only the sound of the engine, the wind outside, and the woman's ragged breathing. She didn't speak. She just looked at the babies, checking if they were breathing, if they were alive, touching their little faces as if she needed to confirm they were real. "What's your name?" Noah asked, breaking the silence. The woman took a long time to answer. When she spoke, her voice was so low it almost got lost. "Clara." "I'm Noah, and that's my dad, Daniel." Clara nodded slightly but said nothing more. Her eyes returned to the babies. Daniel looked in the rearview mirror. She looked terrified, not just of the cold, of fear, of something deep he couldn't identify. There was a tension in her shoulders, a rigidity that went beyond physical discomfort. "How old are they?" he asked, trying to keep his voice neutral and calm. 6 months, Clara replied, her voice trembling. "Are they twins?" "Yes, Oliver and Lily." The names left her mouth with tenderness, as if they were the only thing she had left in the world. The babies began to cry softly, weak and exhausted sounds. Clara rocked them, murmuring words Daniel couldn't hear, mother's words, whispered promises. Noah reached out and lightly touched Lily's tiny hand. The baby stopped crying for a second and looked at him with those wide, clear blue eyes, still confused. "Hi, Lily," Noah said, smiling. "Don't cry. You're safe now." Clara looked at Noah and yawned for the first time. Something like gratitude crossed her pale face. The drive to Daniel's house took 20 minutes. 20 long minutes of snow, heavy silence, and ragged breathing. When they finally arrived, the house loomed in the darkness like a fortress of stone and glass, lit by warm lights that violently contrasted with the icy white outside. Daniel parked in the garage and turned off the engine. "Let's go inside," he said. Clara hesitated, her body tense. I can't." "Yes, you can," Daniel cut in, his voice firm but not aggressive. "You and the babies need to warm up. I'm not going to argue about this." He got out of the car and opened the door for her. Clara looked at the house, big, imposing, a world completely different from hers. She looked at Daniel, at the babies, and then, slowly, she got out of the car. Inside the house, the contrast was brutal. Immediate warmth, soft light, welcoming silence. Daniel lit the fireplace in the living room, the flames beginning to dance and illuminate the room. He spread thick, soft blankets on the large sofa. "Sit here," he said, guiding Clara to the sofa. She sat down, still holding the babies close to her chest, as if they were the only real thing in the world. Noah ran to the kitchen and returned with a fluffy blanket he dragged across the floor. "I got the warmest one I could find," he said, carefully throwing the blanket over Clara and the babies. Daniel went to the kitchen. He prepared hot chocolate in 3 mugs. He came back and handed one to Clara, who held it with still trembling hands. "Drink it," he said. "It will help." Clara brought the mug to her lips and drank slowly. The warmth went down her throat, and she closed her eyes for a moment, as if feeling life return to her frozen body. Daniel sat in the armchair across from her, maintaining a respectful distance. He didn't come too close. He didn't invade her space. Noah settled on the floor near the babies, watching them with pure fascination. "They're little, aren't they, Daddy?" "They are," Daniel agreed, without taking his eyes off Clara. She hadn't relaxed yet. Her shoulders were tense, her eyes always alert. Even with the warmth, with the apparent safety, she looked ready to run away at any moment, like a cornered animal. "For you are safe here," Daniel said, his voice low and firm. "You don't need to be afraid." Clara looked at him. There was something in her eyes, old pain, deep distrust, exhaustion that went beyond the physical. "Why did you stop?" she asked, her voice hoarse. Daniel didn't answer immediately. He looked at Noah, who was now making funny faces at Lily, trying to make her smile. "Because my son asked me to," he said simply. Clara followed his gaze and saw Noah, the boy who had taken off his own coat to cover babies he didn't even know. The boy who was now humming softly, rocking Oliver in his lap as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice almost breaking. Daniel merely nodded. The night wore on slowly. The snow continued to fall outside, heavy and relentless, covering the world. Inside the house, the fireplace crackled, casting dancing shadows on the stone walls. Clara drank the hot chocolate until it was finished, but didn't completely relax. She changed the baby's diapers with mechanical, careful movements, fed them with the little she had in her soaked bag, and rocked them until they fell asleep in her arms. Daniel brought soft pillows and more blankets. He prepared the guest room with clean sheets, but Clara refused. "I prefer to stay here," she said, pointing to the sofa. "As you wish." He didn't insist. He didn't ask invasive questions. He didn't promise anything he couldn't deliver. He just ensured she had what she needed and stepped back, respecting her space. Noah was the last to fall asleep. He settled onto a makeshift mattress Daniel prepared near the sofa, insisting he wanted to stay close to the babies. "Daddy, we saved them, right?" he asked, sleepy, his eyes already closing. "We did," Daniel replied. "We did the right thing." "Yes, Noah, we did the right thing." The boy smiled and finally closed his eyes, sleep quickly taking him. Daniel went up to his own room, but didn't sleep. He stayed awake, sitting in the armchair near the window, watching the snow that wouldn't stop falling. He thought about the woman downstairs, the babies, the fragility of it all, the strangeness of having strangers in his house. He didn't know what Clara was running from. He didn't know what had led her to that empty road, alone with 2 babies in the middle of a deadly blizzard. But he knew one thing for sure: she had nowhere to go. Downstairs, Clara wasn't sleeping either. She held Oliver and Lily against her chest, feeling the warmth of their little bodies, hearing their soft, regular breaths. It was warm. She was safe. But she didn't trust him. She couldn't trust him, not yet. She looked around the room, the fireplace, the paintings on the walls, the books on the shelves, a whole life of comfort that she had never had and never would. A world that wasn't hers, that never would be. Tomorrow she would have to leave. She couldn't take advantage of that man's kindness. She couldn't become a burden. But for now, just for this one night, she allowed the warmth to envelop her. She allowed the exhaustion to pull her down. She allowed herself, for a few precious hours, not to have to fight. Her eyes began to close, but she fought against sleep, always alert, always protecting. Even in safety, even in warmth, she couldn't completely lower her guard. Outside, the snow continued to fall relentlessly. Inside the house, 3 destinies silently intersected, and nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same. The morning light filtered through the windows, soft and white. The snow had stopped during the night, leaving the world outside covered in a thick silence. Clara woke up startled, her body tense, her eyes immediately searching for the babies. Oliver and Lily slept peacefully beside her, wrapped in blankets. They were breathing slowly, their little faces relaxed. Safe. Clara sat up on the sofa and looked around. The house was silent. The fireplace had died down overnight, but the warmth still lingered. She could hear sounds coming from the kitchen. Footsteps, the clinking of dishes. She got up carefully, checked the babies one more time, and walked toward the kitchen. Daniel was making coffee. He was wearing a simple shirt and jeans. He looked different from the night before. Less formal, more human. "Good morning," he said without turning around. "Good morning," Clara replied, her voice still rough. "Coffee, please." Daniel poured 2 cups and placed one in front of her. Clara held the cup with both hands, feeling the heat warm her still sensitive fingers. "How are the babies?" Daniel asked. "Good. Sleeping." He nodded and took a sip of his coffee. The silence between them was uncomfortable but not hostile. Clara knew what she had to do. She needed to thank him. She needed to leave. She couldn't abuse that man's hospitality. He had already done too much. "I'm leaving after coffee," she said, looking down at the cup. Daniel looked at her. "Where to?" The question caught her off guard. Clara opened her mouth, but no words came out. She didn't have an answer. I'll figure something out." "Figure something out how?" His voice wasn't aggressive. It was direct, practical. Clara felt tears burn her eyes, but she held them back tightly. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice trembling. "But I can't stay here. You've already done too much. Do you have family?" "No." "Friends?" "No." "A home?" Clara shook her head. Daniel put his cup on the table and crossed his arms, thinking, "Do you have anywhere to go?" Silence was the answer. Clara felt her chest tighten. She had spent the whole night thinking about this, planning, but all the plans led to the same place, nowhere. "I have nowhere to go," she finally said, her voice breaking. "I don't have a home, I don't have family, I don't have anything." The words came out like a painful confession, like admitting defeat. "I'm a widow," she continued, wiping away a tear that escaped. "My husband died, and since then everything fell apart. I lost the apartment. I lost everything. I was on the road because I had nowhere to stay with Oliver and Lily." Daniel remained silent, processing. Clara stood up quickly. "But I'll figure it out. I always do. I just need a few hours, and I'll leave here. I promise." "Sit down," Daniel said, his voice firm. "I can't take advantage." "Sit down, Clara." She sat, more from exhaustion than obedience. Daniel took a deep breath. He looked out the window at the snow outside. He thought about Noah. He thought about the risks. He thought about all the reasons why he should say no. But he also thought about the babies, the blizzard, the coat Noah had taken off without hesitation. "You can stay," he said. Clara stared at him, incredulous. "What?" "You can stay. For now." "I can't accept that. Do you have a better option?" Clara fell silent. "For now," Daniel repeated, making it clear. "Until you get organized. Until you can find a job, save money, find a place, but with clear boundaries." "What boundaries?" "You take care of your children. I'll take care of mine. The house is big. There's space. But that doesn't mean we're a family. It means you're safe while you need to be." Clara felt something release inside her chest. Relief, fear, gratitude, all at once. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Daniel took a moment to answer. "Because Noah taught me yesterday that sometimes we just need to help, without overthinking." He stood up and took his cup to the sink. "The guest room is ready. You can move in there today. It has a bathroom, closets, space for the babies. Use whatever you need." Clara couldn't speak. She just nodded. "And Clara," Daniel looked at her, "it's not charity, it's survival. Yours and theirs." He left the kitchen, leaving her alone. Clara put her hands over her face and cried in silence. For the first time in months, they weren't tears of despair, they were tears of relief. In the living room, Noah woke up and saw the babies still sleeping. He smiled and ran toward the kitchen, but stopped when he heard voices. He hid behind the door, listening. He heard Clara say she had nowhere to go. He heard his father say she could stay. He heard everything. When Daniel left the kitchen, Noah was sitting on the floor in the hallway, playing with his father's cell phone, which he had borrowed. "What are you doing there?" Daniel asked. "Nothing," Noah said, smiling. "Just waiting for coffee." Daniel was suspicious but didn't say anything. "Go get ready. We'll have breakfast soon." "Okay, Daddy." Noah ran up the stairs, but stopped halfway. "Daddy?" The house is big, right?" Daniel looked at his son. "It is." "Then there's room for everyone." Daniel almost smiled. "There is." "Good." Noah ran up the rest of the stairs, leaving Daniel alone in the hallway. Later, Clara took the babies to the guest room. It was simple, but comfortable. Large bed, window overlooking the snow-covered garden, and spacious closet. She placed Oliver and Lily in the center of the bed and sat next to them. She looked around. That room was bigger than the entire apartment she used to live in. She didn't know how long she would stay. She didn't know what the future held. But for the first time in months, she didn't need to know. For now, she was safe. For now, it was enough. Noah appeared at the door, holding a teddy bear. "I found this in my room," he said. "The babies can have it. I'm big now." Clara looked at the boy, at the simple gesture, at the kindness he didn't even know he had. She smiled. It was a fragile, small but sincere smile, the first in a long time. "Thank you, Noah." The boy smiled back and placed the teddy bear next to Lily. "You're welcome. Now you're part of the house too." He ran off, leaving Clara alone with the babies and that teddy bear. She looked out the window. The snow was beginning to melt. The sun was appearing between the clouds. Something was changing. She could feel it. And for the first time, it wasn't something scary. The first few days were strange, silent, each one occupying their own space, like tenants who share the same roof but not the same life. Daniel left early for work and returned in the late afternoon. Clara stayed in the room with the babies, only leaving to get food or water. She avoided making noise. She avoided taking up too much space. She avoided existing too much. But Noah didn't understand invisible boundaries. On the third morning, he woke up early and went straight to the guest room. He knocked on the door with his knuckles, softly but persistently. "Clara? Are the babies awake yet?" Clara opened the door, still in her pajamas. Oliver was in her arms, yawning. Lily was sleeping in the makeshift crib Daniel had set up in the corner of the room. "They are," she said, trying to smile. "They woke up an hour ago." Noah walked in without asking, his eyes shining with excitement. "Can I play with them?" Clara hesitated. She looked at Oliver, who was gazing at Noah with curiosity, his blue eyes wide. "Of course. But be careful, okay?" "I know," Noah said, already sitting on the floor and holding out his arms. "You can count on me." Clara placed Oliver on the floor, onto a soft blanket. The baby sat up, rocking slightly, still learning to balance. Noah sat in front of him and began to make faces, fish face, tongue sticking out, wide eyes, puffed out cheeks. Oliver stayed quiet for a second, processing all that strangeness. Then he let out a sharp, unexpected giggle, so loud it even startled himself. Clara felt her chest tighten. It had been so long since she had heard that sound, so long since the babies had laughed like that, freely, without fear. "He laughed," Noah shouted, excited. "Clara, he really laughed." "I saw," she said, her voice catching slightly. Noah continued. He made more faces. He clapped his hands. He sang a silly song he made up on the spot, mixing nonsensical words with an off-key tune. Oliver laughed. He laughed so hard he started throwing himself backward, losing his balance, and Noah had to hold him so he wouldn't fall. "Careful, buddy," Noah said, laughing too. "You're too small for acrobatics." Lily woke up with the noise. She whimpered softly, her little arms stretching out, looking for a hug. "Oops!" Lily woke up, Noah said, running to the crib. "Good morning, Princess." He picked up Lily carefully, the way Clara had taught him in the past few days. The baby looked at him, confused, still sleepy, her blonde hair all messy. "Come on, Lily, come play with us." Noah sat on the floor again, now with both babies. He talked to them as if they were old friends. He told nonsensical stories about dragons that ate pizza and princesses that flew on skateboards. He made funny voices for each character. He pretended the toys were heroes in an epic adventure, and Oliver and Lily reacted. They laughed. They babbled sounds that almost sounded like words. They beat their little hands on the floor. They looked at Noah as if he were the most fascinating person in the world. Clara sat on the bed watching. She couldn't stop watching. She couldn't stop feeling that strange, warm feeling in her chest, lightness. She had completely forgotten what that felt like, what it was like to see her children happy, what it was like not to be afraid of the next minute. The bedroom door was ajar, and from the hallway, Daniel watched silently. He had come downstairs to get coffee and heard the laughter. He came up to see what was happening and found that scene. Noah on the floor, surrounded by babies, laughing non-stop. Clara sitting on the bed with a small but real smile on her face, the house filled with sounds that hadn't existed before. Life. His house had life again. Daniel stood there for a few more minutes, leaning against the doorframe, just watching. Something inside him stirred, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Ever since his wife left, the house had been silent, controlled, empty. He didn't know what to call what he felt now, but it was good. The following days followed the same pattern. Noah woke up and went straight to the baby's room. He played with them before breakfast, after breakfast, before bed. Whenever he could, he was there. He sang silly songs. He invented games with random objects. He read children's books with different voices for each character, making Clara laugh when he tried to imitate a wicked witch. He built towers of colorful blocks for Oliver to knock down with a triumphant swipe. He made Lily laugh by sticking out his tongue and making strange noises. And the babies loved it. They waited for Noah. Their little faces lit up when he entered the room. They stretched out their tiny arms when he got close. Oliver started crawling toward him. Lily babbled "no" when she wanted attention. Clara saw all this and felt her heart break and rebuild at the same time. She started leaving the room more often. She stayed in the living room. She allowed Noah to take the babies to play in the living room, where there was more space and natural light. Daniel watched everything from a distance. He didn't approach. He didn't intrude. He didn't ask questions. He just watched his son be happy in a way he hadn't seen for years. Noah had always been a cheerful child. But now there was something different. There was purpose. There was connection. There was a responsibility he embraced naturally, without any burden. Daniel noticed, and he didn't know how to deal with it. He kept his distance from Clara. Short conversations, polite, practical. "Good morning. Do you need anything? Coffee is ready. Are the babies doing well?" Nothing more. Clara respected it. She also kept her distance. She thanked him with simple words. She didn't try to start a conversation. She didn't try to create intimacy. She knew her place, but the bond existed. It was born through Noah, through the laughter, through the life he brought into that large, silent house. A week later, Clara started helping out around the house, not because anyone asked, not because she felt obligated, but because she needed to. She needed to do something. She needed to feel useful. She needed to reclaim some of the dignity she had lost on the road, shivering in the cold, begging for help. She started small. She washed her own dishes after breakfast. She set the table. She cleaned the kitchen while the babies slept, and Noah was at school. Daniel came home in the late afternoon and found the kitchen spotless, everything organized, clean, sparkling. The spices lined up, the pots put away, the sink without a drop of water. He looked around confused. He didn't have a housekeeper during the week, only someone who came on Saturdays for a general cleaning. "Clara tidied up," Noah said, appearing in the kitchen with Oliver in his arms. "She said she wanted to help." Daniel didn't say anything. He just nodded, making a mental note. The next day, Clara cleaned the living room. She organized the books on the shelves by size and color. She arranged the cushions on the sofa. She folded the blankets that were lying around. She cleaned the windows until they were transparent. Then she went to the laundry room. She washed the baby's clothes, then hers. Then, with hesitation, she washed some of Noah's clothes that were in the basket. She didn't want to intrude, but she also didn't want to be invisible. She didn't want to be just a burden. Daniel noticed. He saw the changes. He saw the house looking different, more organized, more alive, more cared for. But he didn't say anything. He didn't compliment. He didn't demand anything. He just respected her space and what she chose to do. Clara started cooking. She made dinner for herself and Noah. She left a plate ready for Daniel, who arrived late from the office. Simple food, nothing elaborate. Rice, beans, grilled chicken, vegetables, but made with care. Daniel ate in silence, alone in the kitchen, while Clara and Noah ate dinner in the living room with the babies scattered on the rug. He liked it. The food was good, homemade, different from the frozen dinners or takeout he used to eat, but he didn't know how to say it. The house started to have sounds. Noah's laughter, the baby's babbling, the sound of the washing machine running, Clara's light footsteps through the hallways, soft music playing in the kitchen while she cooked, the smell of food being prepared. Sounds of life, sounds of home. Daniel worked in his home office some afternoons. He heard it all through the closed door. He heard Noah teaching Oliver to clap. He heard Lily giggling when Noah tickled her tummy. He heard Clara singing softly while rocking the babies for their afternoon nap. He heard the clanking of pots in the kitchen, the vacuum cleaner, the sound of life happening around him. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone in his own house. One afternoon, Daniel left the office to get coffee. He found Noah in the living room, lying on the floor with the babies. Oliver was sleeping on his chest. Lily held his tiny finger, fighting sleep, blinking slowly. "Won't you hurt them like that?" Daniel asked, worried. "No, Daddy. They like it. Look how calm they are." Indeed, the babies seemed peaceful, breathing slowly, safe, trusting. "You like them, don't you?" Daniel asked. Noah smiled, that wide, honest child smile. "I do. They're my friends." "They're too small to be your friends. It doesn't matter. A friend is a friend, no matter the size." Daniel sat on the sofa watching his son, watching that scene that seemed straight out of a movie. "Are you happy?" Noah looked at his father, surprised by the question. "I am. Are you, Daddy?" Daniel took a moment to answer. He thought about the house before, the silence, the mechanical routine, the loneliness he hadn't even noticed anymore. "I am," he finally said. And it was true. That evening, Clara was in the kitchen washing the dinner dishes. The babies were sleeping in the room. Noah had just gone upstairs to brush his teeth. Daniel came into the kitchen to get water. He stood still for a moment, watching Clara. She was humming softly, a song he didn't know. Her hands moved efficiently, washing, rinsing, drying. Every movement was automatic, the result of years of doing that. "You don't have to do that," he said. Clara turned around, startled. She almost dropped a plate. "I know, but I want to." "Why?" She turned off the faucet and dried her hands on the dish towel. "Because I don't want to be a burden. Because I need to feel useful. Because it's what I know how to do." Daniel nodded, understanding more than she imagined. "It's fine. I just don't want you to feel obligated." "I don't feel obligated," Clara said, her voice firm. "I feel grateful, and this is the only way I know how to show it." He was silent for a moment, processing. "The house feels different," Daniel finally said. "Different how?" "Alive." Clara looked at him. For the first time, they truly looked at each other, without haste, without fear, just two people sharing the same space. "It's good," Daniel continued. "I didn't know it was missing until you arrived." Clara felt something warm up in her chest, something dangerous, something she couldn't allow belonging. She was starting to feel like a part of that house, part of that routine, part of that life. And that was dangerous, because this wasn't hers. It never would be. She was just a temporary visitor, someone passing through. But even knowing that, she couldn't stop feeling it. "Good night, Daniel," she said, leaving the kitchen before he could respond. Daniel was left alone, holding the glass of water, Looking at the clean kitchen, he felt it too. He felt the change. He felt her presence. He felt the house breathe again. And he didn't know if that was good or dangerous. Maybe it was both. Upstairs, Clara went into the room and lay down beside the babies. She watched them sleep. So small, so fragile, so dependent on her. She had come to that house without a choice, out of desperation, out of necessity, because there was nowhere else in the world to go. But now something was changing. She was starting to belong, to feel that that space, that routine, that little boy who adored her children, that silent but kind man were part of something bigger. And that was the scariest and most beautiful thing she had felt in a long time. In the hallway, Noah came in his pajamas and hugged his father tightly. "Daddy, I like having Clara and the babies here." "I know, son. Can we stay like this forever?" Daniel hugged his son tightly, feeling the weight of that question. "I don't know, Noah. I don't know." But for the first time, he wished they could. For the first time in years, Daniel Whitmore didn't want his house to be silent again. The weeks passed and living together became natural. There wasn't one specific moment when everything changed. There were no deep conversations or emotional declarations, just small gestures that, combined, turned strangers into something resembling family. Daniel started the day making coffee for two. He left Clara's cup on the table, already with sugar, the way she liked it. She never asked. He just noticed, watching quietly over the days. Clara prepared dinner and always set aside a plate for Daniel, even if he arrived late from the office. She covered it with aluminum foil and left it in the warm oven. He never thanked her out loud. He just ate in silence, alone in the kitchen, and washed his own plate when he finished. Small gestures, silent ones, but they said more than words ever could. One morning, Daniel came downstairs and found Clara trying to reach a pot in the high cupboard. She was on her tiptoes, stretching her arm as far as she could, almost losing her balance. He didn't say anything. He just walked up to her, reached his arm over her head, and grabbed the pot. "Thank you," Clara said, a little awkwardly. Daniel just nodded and left the kitchen. No drama, no embarrassment. Just simple, straightforward help. Another afternoon, Clara was folding clothes in the laundry room when she noticed Daniel's shirts mixed in with Noah's clothes. She hesitated, holding a blue dress shirt. Would it be intrusive? Would it be crossing boundaries that were still fragile? But the shirts were there, wrinkled, needing care. She folded them carefully. She ironed a few that were very creased, smoothing the sleeves gently. She left everything organized in his basket. Daniel found the folded shirts later. He picked one up, felt the soft fabric, the smell of fabric softener he hadn't used in years. He didn't say anything, but the next morning he left more clothes in the laundry, silently. A silent agreement had been made. Clara slowly began to relax. Not so much that she fully exposed herself, but enough not to live in constant alertness, always expecting something bad to happen. She started sitting in the living room at night, after the babies fell asleep. She read books she found on Daniel's massive shelves. She drank chamomile tea. She simply existed without fear, without guilt. Daniel worked in the office late, but he left the door ajar. He liked hearing the sounds of the house, the turning of pages, the clinking of the cup on the saucer, the quiet breathing of someone who was finally resting. He cared without intruding, always attentive but respectful. When he realized Clara was out of shampoo, he bought some and left it in her bathroom. No note. No explanation, just there next to the sink. When he saw that the babies were running out of diapers, he came back from the store with 3 large packages. He left them by her bedroom door, knocked lightly, and left before she opened it. Clara thanked him with looks, with small, shy smiles, with slightly more elaborate dinners that left the house smelling of spices and warmth. They talked little, short sentences, practical, direct. Did the babies sleep well? They did. And Noah. He did too. He had a nightmare but went back to sleep quickly. "Do you need anything from the store?" "Milk, if you can, and fruit for the babies." "I'll write it down." "Anything else?" "No, thank you." Simple, objective conversations. but they built something solid, brick by brick. Noah was the link, the golden thread that connected everyone effortlessly. He moved between the two worlds without perceiving barriers. He played with the babies in the morning. He talked to his father about school in the afternoon. He called Clara to see every new achievement, every small milestone. "Clara, Clara, come see! Oliver is trying to stand up by himself." She would drop what she was doing and run to the living room. She smiled. She applauded. She held her breath when Oliver wobbled. Daniel heard from the office and smiled too, even without seeing. "Daddy, dinner is ready!" Clara made that pasta with red sauce you liked. He would come downstairs. He ate dinner in silence in the kitchen while Clara and Noah ate in the living room. He nodded his thanks when he passed by. Noah didn't realize it, but he was building bridges, creating moments of connection, including everyone effortlessly and without calculation. One night, Noah had a bad nightmare. He woke up crying loudly, calling for his father, his voice full of fear. Daniel ran up the stairs, but when he got to the room, he found Clara already there. She was sitting on Noah's bed, her hand on his shoulder, speaking softly with that calm voice that soothed even the most agitated babies. "It was just a dream. You're safe here. Nothing is going to hurt you. It's okay." Noah clung to her, still trembling, his little face wet with tears. Daniel stood in the doorway watching the scene. He could go in. He could take over. He was his son, after all. But Noah was calming down in Clara's arms. She knew what to do. She knew exactly what to say. He stood there for a few more minutes, just watching. When Noah finally fell back asleep, breathing deeply and peacefully, Clara carefully left the room and found Daniel standing in the dark hallway. "I'm sorry," she whispered, closing the door gently. "I heard him crying and I thought—" "You don't need to apologize," Daniel cut in, his voice low but firm. "Thank you for taking care of him." They looked at each other in the dimly lit hallway. For a moment, something passed between them. Respect, recognition, trust. Clara nodded and went back to her own room, barefoot, stepping softly on the carpet. Daniel stood still, processing what had happened. She had cared for his son. She had entered Noah's room without asking permission, and he had let her. He had trusted her completely. The trust was growing, slowly, without rushing, but it was growing. Daniel started counting on Clara, not in a dependent or abusive way, but naturally. When he needed to leave early for important meetings, he let her know the night before. He knew she would look after Noah if he woke up before Daniel returned. When he had late meetings, he didn't worry about giving advance notice. He knew dinner would be waiting, that the house would be in order, that Noah would be fine. Clara also started to trust, little by little. When Oliver had a high fever in the middle of the night, she didn't hesitate to knock on Daniel's door. He woke up immediately, got dressed, and took everyone to the emergency room. He waited for hours. He helped hold Oliver during the examination. He paid for everything without batting an eye. When Lily wouldn't stop crying one entire night, Clara accepted Daniel's offer of help, even though it was 3 in the morning. They took turns. They walked around the dark house with the baby in their arms, one passing her to the other when the exhaustion became too much until she finally fell asleep at dawn. They worked together, without unnecessary words, without complaints, just silent partnership. One Friday afternoon, Daniel was in his office reviewing contracts when he heard loud laughter coming from the living room. Lots of laughter, squeals of joy. He left the office and found the scene. Noah, Clara, Oliver, and Lily sprawled on the living room floor. Noah had inflated colorful balloons and was tossing them to the babies, who tried to catch them without success. Oliver tried to grab a red balloon and fell on his bottom, laughing. Lily laughed so hard she threw herself backward, losing her balance. Clara laughed too. She really laughed, wholeheartedly, her eyes shining with joy, her face completely relaxed, without that constant tension. Daniel leaned against the door, just watching that scene that looked like a TV commercial. Noah saw him first. "Daddy, come play with us." Daniel hesitated, looking at his watch. "I have pending work, just a little bit," Noah insisted, already grabbing a green balloon. "Please." Clara looked at him. She didn't say anything. She didn't pressure him. She just waited, leaving the choice up to him. Daniel took a deep breath and walked into the room. He sat on the floor, cross-legged. He picked up a yellow balloon and tossed it to Oliver. The baby screamed with pure joy, flapping his little hands. They played for 20 minutes. 20 minutes of complete silliness, of loud laughter, of lightness that Daniel hadn't felt in years. When he finally went back to the office, he realized he was smiling and he couldn't stop. In the following days, small moments continued to happen naturally. Daniel helped Clara assemble a new playpen for the babies that he had bought. They worked side by side on the living room floor, passing tools, adjusting parts, reading confusing instructions. No unnecessary conversation, just efficient cooperation. Clara sewed a button back onto Daniel's favorite shirt that had fallen off. She left the shirt on his bed, folded neatly. Daniel brought Belgian chocolate from the store. Clara's favorite, the one with hazelnuts. She had never told him which one it was. He just paid attention when she ate a piece Noah had offered her. Noah got a perfect score on a difficult math test. Daniel celebrated with pride. Clara did too, as if it were her own achievement. They baked a chocolate cake together in the kitchen to celebrate, getting flour everywhere. Small gestures, small seemingly insignificant moments, but they were building something big, something solid. One night, after everyone was asleep, Clara was in the kitchen drinking mint tea. Daniel came down to get cold water. They stayed there, in comfortable silence, sharing the space in the dark kitchen, only the exhaust fan light on. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful. "Thank you," Clara suddenly said, breaking the silence. "For what?" "For everything. For letting us stay. For not asking invasive questions. For trusting me." Daniel took a long drink of water. "You haven't given me a reason not to trust you. Still, many people wouldn't have done what you did. Thank you." He nodded, accepting it. "And you? Are you managing to trust?" Clara thought for a moment, looking into her cup. "Little by little, a little more each day." "That's enough." They stayed a few more minutes in silence. Then, they each went to their rooms, climbing the stairs at different paces. But something important had changed. Something had been said without elaborate words. The trust was there, growing, slowly, without rush or pressure. And for the first time in a long time, they both felt they could lower their guard. Just a little. Enough to finally breathe. It was an ordinary Tuesday when everything changed. Clara woke up to Oliver crying. It wasn't a normal baby cry asking for attention. It was different, high-pitched, desperate. A sound that made her heart stop. She picked up the baby immediately and felt it. He was hot, very hot. His skin was burning. "Oliver, my love," she whispered, checking his temperature with her hand on his forehead. "What is it? What's happening?" The baby cried non-stop, his little face red and wet, his body tense. Lily woke up too from the noise and started crying in response. Frightened, Clara felt panic rise in her throat like a wave. Her hands started trembling violently. She knew that fear, that paralyzing terror of losing someone you love. Not again. Please, God, not again. She tried to calm Oliver, rocking him, singing softly, but he only got worse. His breathing became shallow, too fast. His little blue eyes were half closed. Clara felt her legs weaken. She couldn't lose him. She wouldn't survive it. She ran to the bedroom door and screamed, her voice cracking. "Daniel! Daniel! Please, help!" It was 6 in the morning. Daniel was getting ready for work, putting on his tie. When he heard the scream, the tone of desperation in Clara's voice made something snap inside him. He raced down the stairs, skipping the last few steps, almost tripping. He found Clara in the hallway, barefoot, in her pajamas, holding Oliver against her chest, her face completely pale. "He has a very high fever," she said, her voice shaking. "I don't know what to do. He won't stop crying. I tried to give him water, but it doesn't help. He just gets worse." "Let me see," Daniel said, holding out his arms. Clara handed Oliver over carefully. Daniel took the baby and felt it immediately. The small body was burning. His breathing was fast, shallow. His lips had a slightly purplish color. Daniel didn't hesitate for a second. "Get Lily. We're going to the hospital, now." But I don't have insurance, I don't have money. It doesn't matter. Let's go. Now. Clara. He was already going down the stairs with Oliver in his arms. Clara quickly grabbed Lily and ran after him. Daniel put Oliver in the car seat with quick, precise movements. He helped Clara secure Lily in the other car seat. He got into the driver's seat and sped off. Clara held Oliver's tiny hand from the back seat, checking if he was still breathing. The baby was crying weakly now, out of energy. "He's going to be okay," Daniel said, his eyes fixed on the road. "He's going to be okay, Clara, I promise." But his voice was tense, worried in a way Clara had never heard. The hospital was 20 minutes away. Daniel made the trip in 12 tight, running yellow lights, speeding where he could. He parked in the emergency spot. He picked up Oliver carefully and ran inside the emergency room. Clara followed with Lily, stumbling in her slippers. "I need a doctor," Daniel shouted at the reception desk. "Baby with a very high fever, 6 months old." An on-call nurse came running. She looked at Oliver, saw his shallow breathing, and called a doctor immediately. "Room 3, now!" They took the baby into an emergency room. Clara tried to go with them, but the nurse stopped her. "You need to wait out here. We'll take care of him, but we need space." "No! I need to stay with him," Clara screamed, trying to get past. "He's my son." "Clara," Daniel held her arm firmly. "Let them work. He's in good hands." "I can't lose him," Clara said, tears streaming uncontrollably. "I can't lose anyone else, Daniel. Please, I can't handle—" "You won't lose him," Daniel said, turning Clara to look her in the eyes. "Look at me. You won't lose him, I promise." Clara collapsed. She started sobbing, her body shaking. Daniel held her as she cried. They went to the waiting room. Clara sat down, still holding Lily tightly, who was crying softly. She rocked back and forth, murmuring prayers she barely remembered. Daniel sat beside her. He didn't say anything. He didn't try to console her with empty words. He just stayed there, solid, present. The minutes passed slowly. Every second was an eternity of agony. Clara couldn't stop crying. Silent tears she wiped away with the back of her hand. "When my husband died," she suddenly said, her voice rough, "I promised I would protect Oliver and Lily, that I would never let anything happen to them. And now, you are protecting them," Daniel interrupted firmly. "You brought him here. You asked for help. You did exactly what you needed to do. I should have noticed sooner, should have seen that he was getting sick. Babies get sick quickly, in hours. This is not your fault." Clara shook her head, unable to believe it. Lily started getting restless in Clara's arms. Daniel held out his arms. "Let me hold her. You need to breathe. You need to calm down." Clara hesitated, but handed the baby over. Daniel picked up Lily, rocking her with gentle movements. The baby gradually calmed down, resting her head on his shoulder. They waited for an hour, the longest hour of Clara's life. Finally, the doctor came out of the room, removing his gloves. Clara jumped up, almost falling. "How is he? Please tell me he's okay." "He's going to be fine," the doctor said, smiling slightly. "It was an acute respiratory infection. We gave him intravenous antipyretics, antibiotics, nebulization. His fever has dropped significantly. He's breathing better." Clara put her hands over her face and cried with pure relief. "Can I see him? You can—" "He's sleeping now." Clara practically ran into the room. She found Oliver lying on a small stretcher covered with a white sheet, connected to a monitor. He was sleeping peacefully, breathing better. She approached and touched his little face carefully. Still warm, but not like before. "My love," she whispered, kissing his forehead, "you scared Mommy so much." Daniel came in with Lily still in his arms. He stood near the door, watching silently. "He'll need to stay under observation for a few hours," the doctor explained, "just to make sure everything is stable, but he's out of danger now." Clara nodded, unable to speak. The following hours were a blur. Clara didn't leave Oliver's side for a minute. She sat in the chair next to the stretcher and held his tiny hand. Daniel stayed with Lily, walking through the hospital corridors, keeping the baby distracted. He showed her the lights, the windows, talking to her softly. He bought food from the cafeteria, hot coffee, water, juice. He brought everything to Clara, who barely touched it. "Eat something," he said. "I can't." "Clara, you need to eat. For the babies." She picked up a piece of bread and ate it mechanically, without tasting anything. Daniel didn't leave, not for a minute. He cancelled all his meetings for the day. He was there, holding Lily, taking care of everything, talking to the doctors, paying the bills without hesitation, ensuring Clara didn't have to worry about anything but Oliver. In the late afternoon, Oliver was released to go home. He was much better. The fever had passed. The antibiotic was working. Daniel carried the car seat and the bags. Clara held Oliver tightly against her chest. In the car, on the way back, she finally spoke. "Thank you." Daniel looked in the rearview mirror. "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do. You didn't have to do all this. Stay all day. Cancel your work. Pay for everything. I'll pay you back, I swear." "Clara," Daniel interrupted, his voice firm but gentle. "I don't want you to pay me back anything. It wasn't about money. It was about doing the right thing." "But why do you do this?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Why do you help us so much?" Daniel was silent for a long moment. "Because I can help, and because you need it. It's as simple as that. Nothing is that simple." "It should be," he said softly. They arrived home as the sun was setting. Noah was waiting anxiously at the door. "Is Oliver okay?" he asked, his eyes wide. "Is he going to get well?" "He is," Clara said, smiling tiredly. "He's going to be fine." Noah touched Oliver's little hand carefully. "That's good. I was very scared. I prayed for him to get well." That night, after the babies finally fell asleep, Clara went down to the kitchen. She found Daniel making tea. He poured a cup for her without asking. They sat at the table in silence. "I trust you," Clara suddenly said. Daniel looked at her. "I didn't trust anyone after Andrew died," she continued. "I was afraid of everything, of everyone. But today you saved my son. You stayed with me. You didn't judge me. You just helped." "It's what I do," Daniel said. "I help when I can, but I don't dominate. I don't take over your life. You're still their mother. I was just there." "You were present," Clara corrected. "It's completely different." He nodded. "And I'll continue to be present. As long as you need." Clara felt complete confidence. Absolute. For the first time since Andrew died, she wasn't alone. The days that followed were different. Clara was now truly a part of the household routine. She was no longer a guest. She was part of that life. She cooked, she cleaned, she organized. She took care of Noah as if he were her own, and he responded, treating Oliver and Lily like real siblings. Daniel watched it all with mixed feelings. There was comfort. The house had life again. It had warmth. It had the sounds of family. But there was also fear. Fear of getting used to it. Fear that it wouldn't last. Fear of repeating past mistakes. He carried a burden no one knew about. A story he didn't tell. A wound that wouldn't heal. He had failed before. He had lost someone by not being present. By working too much. By not noticing what was happening until it was too late. And now, seeing that family forming, he felt comfort and terror at the same time. The house felt like a home. Finally, after so long empty, but nothing was defined. Nothing had a name. Nothing had a guarantee. Clara was there because she needed to be. Not because she wanted to stay forever. The babies were there because they had nowhere else. Noah loved everyone, but he didn't understand that it could be temporary. Daniel felt the weight of everything. He looked at Clara and saw strength, determination, a mother fighting. He looked at the babies and saw innocence, trust, life that needed protection. He looked at Noah and saw pure, unreserved love. And in the middle of it all, Daniel felt lost, because for the first time in years, he had something to lose, and he didn't know if he was ready to risk it again, but he also didn't know how to stop. One night, he stayed awake looking out the window. The snow had started falling again, lightly, delicately. Downstairs, the house was sleeping, Clara in the room with the babies, Noah in his own. Everything quiet. Daniel put his hand on the cold glass. That house was a home now. But for how long? He didn't have an answer, and that scared him more than anything. 3 weeks passed since the day at the hospital. The household routine had solidified. Clara woke up early, prepared coffee for everyone, looked after the babies while Noah went to school. Daniel worked in his home office some afternoons, heard the laughter coming from the living room, felt the house alive. Everything seemed to be finding its place. Until that Thursday night. Clara was in the living room organizing baby photos on her phone when she realized she needed a picture frame. She had a beautiful picture of Oliver and Lily smiling that she wanted to frame. "Daniel," she called, seeing him pass by in the hallway. "Yes? Do you have any picture frames you're not using? I wanted to put a photo of the babies in one. There are several in the office closet. You can take whatever you want. Thank you." Clara went up to the office. She opened the closet and found a box full of empty picture frames. She picked a simple one, made of light wood, perfect. But next to the box there was another one, smaller, with old photos. She wasn't going to touch it. It wasn't her business. But the box was slightly open, and a photo was face up, showing young people, smiling, innocent curiosity. That's all. Clara pulled the photo out a little, and her heart stopped. In the photo, Daniel must have been in his early 20s, messier hair, a wider smile. And beside him, with his arms slung over his shoulders, was Andrew. Her Andrew, younger, thinner, but unmistakably him. Clara took the photo with trembling hands. She flipped it over. On the back was written, "Daniel and Andrew, graduation, 2008. She sat on the floor, still holding the photo. It couldn't be. It didn't make sense. Daniel knew Andrew. How? Why had he never said anything? She slowly walked down the stairs, the photo in her hand. Daniel was in the kitchen finishing the dinner dishes. "Daniel," Clara said, her voice sounding strange. He turned around and saw the photo in her hand. His face changed immediately. "Where did you find that?" "In the office closet. I was looking for picture frames and..." She held out the photo. "You knew Andrew?" Daniel slowly dried his hands. He took the photo. He looked at it for a long moment. "I did," he finally said, his voice low. "How?" "We were friends, in college, very close." Clara felt her legs weaken. She leaned against the counter. "You were friends with my husband and never told me." "I didn't know Andrew was your husband," Daniel said. "You never showed me a picture. You never said his full last name. I had no way of knowing. But when I said his name, Andrew, didn't you think..." "Andrew is a common name, Clara. I wouldn't have guessed." She looked at the photo again, at the two young men smiling, full of future. "Were you close?" Daniel took a deep breath. "We were very best friends throughout college. We shared an apartment. We studied together. We did everything together." "And what happened?" Daniel was silent for a long moment. "I changed," he finally said. "I started moving up in the world. I got a good job. Then a better one. I started making money, making contacts, building a career, and I drifted away. Drifted away how? Stopped answering calls, cancelled meetups, always too busy, always with something more important." He looked at the photo with something like pain. "Andrew tried to keep in touch, he really tried. But I was too focused on climbing, on growing, on succeeding, and before I knew it, years had passed. We didn't talk anymore." Clara felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, confusion. "You abandoned him." "I did," Daniel admitted, without trying to defend himself. "I abandoned him and other people too. I thought friendships were dispensable. That success was more important, that I could always reconnect later. But I never reconnected." "He talked about you," Clara said, her voice trembling. "Sometimes he talked about a college friend who got rich, who lost touch. He never said the name, but it must have been you." Daniel closed his eyes. "It probably was." Clara sat in the kitchen chair. She placed the photo on the table. "I don't know how to feel about this." "Me neither." They were silent. Daniel pulled up a chair and sat across from her. "I'm so sorry, Clara, truly sorry. If I had known, if I had kept in touch, maybe things would be different." "Different how?" "Maybe I could have helped you sooner. Maybe Andrew wouldn't have had to work so hard. Maybe..." "No," Clara interrupted. Don't do that. Don't keep creating what-ifs. Life happened the way it did. But her eyes were teary. Tell me about him, Daniel asked softly. What was your life like? Clara took a deep breath. It was never easy, she began. Andrew worked a lot, 2 jobs sometimes. We lived paycheck to paycheck. Small apartment. Bills always tight, but we were happy. He came home tired, but always smiling. Always making time for the babies. Always telling a silly joke to make me laugh. Daniel listened in silence, the guilt growing inside him. We didn't have much, Clara continued, but we had each other, and it was enough. It was more than enough. How did he die? Daniel asked. Although a part of him didn't want to know, Clara wiped away a tear. He was hit by a car, coming home from work. It was night. He was walking back because we had sold the car to pay for the twins' birth. A drunk driver. Andrew died instantly. Daniel felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. Clara, I'm so sorry. After that, everything collapsed, she said, her voice breaking. I couldn't work with 2 newborns. I lost the apartment. I lost everything. That's when you found me on the road. Daniel put his head in his hands. The guilt was overwhelming. If he had kept in touch, if he had been a real friend, if he had helped Andrew when he was alive, but he hadn't. He had chosen success, money, career, and he had abandoned one of the best friends he ever had. I didn't know, he said, his voice rough, but that doesn't change the fact that I failed him. I failed completely. Clara looked at him. She saw the genuine pain in Daniel's face. You didn't know it was him, she said. And even if you did, life had already happened. But I could have prevented it, Daniel insisted. It could have been different. Maybe, or maybe not. We'll never know. They remained silent for a long time. The relationship between them had changed tone. It was no longer just a man helping a stranger. It was more complex, heavier, more intertwined. I want to do things differently now, Daniel finally said. Not out of guilt, not because I owe Andrew anything, but because it's the right thing to do, because I don't want to fail again. What do you mean? I want to truly help you. Not just with a roof and food. I want to help you get back on your feet, to have autonomy, to build a real life for you and the babies. Clara looked at him, surprised. How? I'll get you a job, a real job, with a fair salary. I'll help with daycare for the babies. I'll give you structure until you can get stabilized, and when you're ready, you can choose whether you want to stay or go, but it will be your choice. Not a necessity. Daniel, you don't have to. I do, he interrupted. Not for Andrew, for me, because I don't want to be that guy who abandons people anymore, who only thinks about success, who forgets what really matters. Clara felt tears roll down her face. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Just let me do this. Let me try to fix what I can fix. She nodded. In the following weeks, Daniel kept his promise. He used his contacts. He called people who owed him favors. He found a position for Clara in a good company, with flexible hours, a decent salary, and benefits. He helped enroll Oliver and Lily in a daycare center near the house, a good one, safe, with qualified professionals. He helped Clara put together a resume, prepare for the interview. He bought appropriate clothes for work, and when she got the job, he celebrated as if it were his own victory. Clara started working. It was difficult at first. Leaving the babies at daycare broke her heart. But little by little, she adapted. She earned her own money. She had a routine. She had autonomy. She had her dignity back. Daniel didn't demand anything. He didn't ask for anything. He was just present. He helped when necessary. He respected when she wanted to do things alone. Clara's life was truly beginning to change, and for the first time since Andrew died, she felt she had a future. One evening, after the babies fell asleep, Clara found Daniel in the office. Can I come in? Of course. She sat in the chair across from his desk. I wanted to thank you, truly, for everything you've done. You don't need to. I do, she interrupted. You gave me more than a roof. You gave me hope. You gave me a chance to rebuild. You gave me my life back. Daniel was silent. And about Andrew, Clara continued. I understand now. I understand that you were young, that you were building a career, that life takes us to places we don't plan. I won't judge you for that." "Thank you," he said softly. "But now you're doing things differently," Clara said, "and that matters. Andrew would be happy knowing you're taking care of his family." Daniel felt his eyes sting. "I hope so." Clara stood up to leave but paused at the door. "Daniel, you're not that guy who abandons people anymore. You've changed, and that means everything." She left, leaving Daniel alone with his thoughts. He looked at the photo of Andrew on the desk. "I'm sorry, friend," he whispered. "Sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. But I swear I'll take care of them. I promise." And for the first time in a long time, Daniel felt he was doing something right. Something that truly mattered. 6 months after starting her job, Clara made a decision. It was a Saturday morning. The babies were playing on the living room rug with Noah, who was building a tower of blocks for them to knock down. Daniel was reading the newspaper on the sofa, the sound of laughter filling the house. Clara came down the stairs with a different expression, determined, nervous. "Daniel, can I talk to you?" He looked up from the newspaper. "Of course. Is something wrong?" No problem. I just need to talk." They went to the kitchen. Clara poured coffee for both of them, her hands trembling slightly. "I managed to save some money," she began. "These past months working, I saved everything I could." Daniel waited, sensing what was coming. "I found an apartment," Clara continued. "Small but nice. 2 bedrooms, close to work and the daycare. The rent is within my budget." She took a deep breath. "I'm moving out." The words hung in the air. Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. He knew this day would come. He had helped her precisely for this, for Clara to have a choice, autonomy. But it still hurt. "When?" he asked, keeping his voice neutral. "Next week, if everything goes well." "Are you sure about this?" "I am," Clara said, her eyes shining. "Not because I want to leave here. This house, you and Noah, you saved my life, literally. But I have to do this. I need to prove to myself that I can, that I'm capable of taking care of my children alone." Daniel nodded slowly, understanding. "It's not running away," he said. "No, it's growing." He smiled, a small but genuine smile. "Then we'll help you move. You don't have to—" "Clara," he interrupted, "after everything, do you really think I'd let you do this alone?" She smiled, her eyes teary. "Thank you." Telling Noah was the hardest part. That night, after dinner, Clara sat with him in the living room. "Noah, I need to tell you something." The boy looked at her, innocent. "What?" "The babies and I are moving out." Noah stopped playing with the toy car he was holding. "Where to?" "To an apartment, not far from here, about 20 minutes away." "Why?" His voice got small. "Don't you like it here anymore?" "It's not that," Clara said, pulling him close. "We love it here. You, your dad, this house, everything. But I need to have my own place. I need to take care of the babies in my own space." "But this is your space too," Noah said, his eyes welling up with tears. "The house is big. There's room for everyone." Clara felt her heart break. "I know, love. But sometimes we have to do hard things to grow, and this is one of those things." "I don't want you to leave," Noah said, starting to cry. "Oliver and Lily are my siblings, and you're like my mom too." Clara hugged him tightly, her own tears falling. "We're not going to disappear, Noah. We'll still see each other. You can visit whenever you want, and we'll miss you every day." "It's not the same," he sobbed. I know it's not." Daniel appeared at the door, saw the scene, and felt his own chest tighten. The following week was a whirlwind of emotions. Daniel helped Clara organize everything. He rented a moving truck. He bought basic furniture she didn't have yet. He hired movers. Clara tried to refuse, but he wouldn't accept it. "Just let me do this," he said. "Please." She agreed. Noah helped pack the baby's toys. Every block, every doll, every book. He did it with excessive care, as if he wanted it to last forever. "This one is Oliver's favorite," he said, wrapping a rubber duck. "Be careful with it." Clara watched, her heart heavy. The moving day arrived. It was a sunny Saturday. Ironic, Clara thought. It should be raining or snowing. The truck arrived early. The men began loading the boxes, the few things Clara owned, plus the furniture Daniel had bought. Noah stayed close to the babies the whole time, holding Lily's tiny hand, tickling Oliver, as if trying to engrave every second. Daniel organized everything efficiently. He checked lists. He made sure nothing was forgotten. But Clara saw the tension in his shoulders, the way he avoided looking directly at her. When the truck was ready, they drove to the apartment. It was small, as Clara had said, but it was clean, safe. In a quiet neighborhood, 2 bedrooms, one for Clara, one for the twins, small living room, simple kitchen, 1 bathroom, but it was hers. Daniel and Noah helped unload everything. The movers placed the furniture in the rooms. Daniel patiently assembled the baby's crib. Noah organized the toys in their room with the same care as before. Clara tidied the kitchen, putting away pots, plates, cups, trying not to cry. By the time everything was more or less in place, it was late afternoon. The movers left. Only the 4 of them remained. And the babies. Clara made coffee. They sat on the empty living room floor, still without a sofa. "It looks good," Daniel said, looking around. "It's going to be a good home for you." "It will," Clara agreed. Noah was quiet, holding Lily in his lap, the baby's blonde head resting on his shoulder. "Noah?" Clara called softly. "Are you okay?" He shook his head but didn't speak. Tears streamed silently down his face. Clara went to him and knelt down. "Come here." She hugged Noah and Lily together. Oliver crawled toward them and Clara pulled him in too. All together on the floor of the empty living room. "I'm going to miss you so much," Clara said. "So much. You were the first one to help me, remember? You took off your coat to cover the babies. You saved me that day." "I just wanted you to stay," Noah said between sobs. "I know. But you know what won't change. How much we love each other. That will never change, no matter where we live. Promise." "I promise." Daniel watched it all, his eyes red. When it got dark, it was time to leave. Clara put the babies in their strollers. They were tired, almost asleep. She walked Daniel and Noah to the door. "Thank you," she said, her voice choked, "for everything, for every day, for every gesture, for giving me a chance to rebuild my life." "You did that yourself," Daniel said. "I just helped." "You did more than help. You were present, and that saved us." She hugged Daniel, a long hug, tight. "The promise stands," he said softly. "I'll be here whenever you need me, no matter what." "I know." Noah hugged Clara again, crying. "I'm coming to visit tomorrow," he said. "I'll be waiting." She kissed his forehead. They left. Clara stood at the door, watching. Daniel put Noah in the car. He waved to her. He got into the car. She watched the car disappear around the corner. Then she went back inside the empty apartment. The babies were sleeping in their strollers. The house was silent. Different from the silence of Daniel's mansion, this was a silence that was hers. Clara sat on the living room floor. She looked around, at the empty walls, at the boxes still unopened, at the uncertain future. And she cried. She cried out of sadness, out of fear, out of gratitude, out of relief. She cried because she was alone again, but also because she had made it. She had survived. She had gotten back on her feet. She had built a path. In the car, Noah was crying in the back seat. "Daddy, why did she have to leave?" Daniel looked in the rearview mirror, his heart heavy. "Because she needed to, son. She needed to be strong on her own." "But she's already strong." "Yes, but sometimes we need to prove that to ourselves." "I'm going to miss them so much." "Me too." Daniel drove in silence. The house was going to feel empty again. Silent, like it was before, but different, because now he knew what it was like to have life inside those walls. When they got home, Noah went straight to his room. He closed the door. Daniel heard muffled crying down the hallway. He went into his own room. He sat on the bed. He looked out the window at the snow starting to fall outside. Clara was gone. It was the right thing. It was what was supposed to happen. But it hurt. It hurt more than he expected. In the apartment, Clara finally got up from the floor. She put the babies in their cribs. They fell asleep instantly, exhausted. She went back to the living room. She opened a box. She took out a picture frame. It was a photo Noah had taken the week before. Everyone together. Daniel, Clara, Noah, Oliver, and Lily, smiling, a family, even if temporary, even if complicated. A family. Clara placed the photo on the empty shelf. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Then she started unpacking. Life continued. Different, lonelier, scarier, but with hope. Because for the first time in a long time, Clara had a home that was hers. And she had people who loved her, who would be there, always. The promise remained, and that for now was enough. 3 months after the move, life had found a new rhythm. Clara woke up early every morning. She got the babies ready. She took them to daycare. She went to work. She returned in the late afternoon, picked up Oliver and Lily, made dinner, played with them, and put them to bed. A routine that was hers, built with her own hands. There were hard days, days when money was tight, days when the babies were sick and she had to miss work, days when the loneliness weighed heavily, but she kept going. With dignity, with strength, with her head held high. Daniel kept his promise. He was present, always available when Clara needed him, but without intruding, without showing up unannounced, without trying to control. When Oliver had an ear infection, Daniel took everyone to the doctor. He paid for the consultation, he bought the medicine, and he left, letting Clara take care of her son. When Clara's car broke down, he sent his mechanic to fix it. He didn't charge her, he didn't make a fuss. When she had an interview for a promotion at work, he watched the babies. He looked after them all afternoon. He returned them fed, clean, happy. Practical help, without intrusion, without expectations. Noah visited every week. On Saturdays, Daniel took him to spend the afternoon with Clara and the babies. They played at the park near the apartment. They had a picnic. They laughed. Noah had learned something important, that love doesn't require possession, that people can love each other even when living in different houses, that family isn't just about who lives together. He still missed them. He missed waking up and hearing the babies, seeing Clara in the kitchen, having that house full. But he understood. In his own childish and pure way, he understood. Clara and Daniel did not form a romantic family. There was never a kiss. There was never a declaration. There was never that look that changes everything, and that was fine, because what they had was different. It was deeper in some ways, more honest. They had become friends, true friends. They texted almost every day. Simple things. The babies ate well today. Noah got a good grade on his math test. Did you see that news story? Do you need anything? Conversations of people who care, of people who are present, of friends. One night, Daniel was alone in his office. Noah was asleep. The house was silent as it had always been, but the silence didn't bother him anymore like it used to. He looked out the window. The snow was falling outside, lightly, and he thought about how he had gotten there, how he had built an empire, money, success, power, recognition, but he had lost people along the way. Success had demanded a price, and he had paid it without realizing it. He had drifted away from college friends, from cousins, from people who genuinely cared. He had been surrounded by people, many people, meetings, dinners, events, but they were interested people. In the money, in the contacts, in the opportunities, not in him, not in Daniel. He had spent years without a true friend, someone who called just to see how he was, someone who wanted nothing in return. Andrew had been that friend, and he had let him go. He had chosen work, meetings, contracts, and he had lost. But now, in an unexpected and painful way, he had gained something back. He had Clara, not as a wife, not as a romantic interest, as a friend, a true friend. Someone who called when he was sad, who asked how his day was, who laughed at his bad jokes, who told him when he was wrong. someone who wanted nothing but his presence. Daniel smiled alone in the dark office. It had taken so long, so many mistakes, so much loss. But finally, he had a friend again. The next morning, Saturday, Daniel took Noah to visit Clara. When they arrived, the babies ran to Noah. Well, Oliver crawled quickly and Lily scooted, but the intention was running. "Noah!" Oliver shouted, the first word he had learned. Noah picked them both up, laughing. "Hi, guys! I missed you!" Clara was in the kitchen making pancakes. Daniel walked in. "Need help? Can you set the table?" They worked side by side. No tension, no expectation, just friends preparing breakfast. They ate together, the four of them, the babies making a mess, Noah telling stories from school, Clara laughing, Daniel watching it all with a peaceful smile. After breakfast, Noah took the babies to play in the living room. Clara and Daniel stayed in the kitchen, drinking more coffee. "How are you?" he asked. "Good. Tired, but good. And you?" "The same." They smiled. "Thank you," Clara suddenly said. "For what?" "For keeping your promise. For being present without smothering. For being a friend." Daniel looked at her. "Thank you too." "For what?" "For reminding me what matters. For teaching me that success isn't just money. For giving me a friend back." Clara held his hand across the table. A quick squeeze, ooh, warm. "We did it, didn't we?" "We did." In the afternoon, Daniel and Noah left. Clara put the babies down for their nap and sat on the sofa. She picked up her phone. She looked at the photos from the day. Noah making a face. Oliver laughing. Lily with pancake on her mouth. She chose one. Oliver and Lily sitting side by side, smiling at the camera. Their little blue eyes shining. Their messy blonde hair. She sent it to Daniel. "Today was good. Thank you for everything. Always." In the car, on the way home, Daniel's phone buzzed. Noah was distracted looking out the window. Daniel opened the message. He saw the photo of the babies smiling. He read Clara's message, and he smiled. A silent smile. Peaceful. True. He didn't reply with words. He just sent a heart. He put the phone away and kept driving. He felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Peace from having done the right thing, from having been present, from having helped without expecting anything in return. Peace from having a true friend, someone who cared, who was there. Peace from knowing that Noah was learning to love without possessing, to care without controlling. Peace from knowing that Clara was well, that she had succeeded, that she was strong and capable. The snow was falling outside, lightly, beautifully. Noah was humming in the back seat, and Daniel drove in silence, smiling. Life hadn't given him what he expected. It hadn't given him romance. It hadn't given him a traditional family. It hadn't given him a movie ending. But it had given him something better. It had given him real connection, true friendship, honest love. It had given him the chance to correct mistakes, to be present, to do things differently. It had given him Clara and the babies. It had given Noah a lesson in love without possession. It had given himself a mirror, a way to see who he had been and who he could be. And in the end, that was more than enough. It was everything. Daniel parked in the garage. Noah ran out and into the house. He stayed a moment longer in the car, looking out the window. He thought about Andrew, how happy he would have been knowing his family was well, that they were safe, that they had a future. "Sorry I wasn't there, friend," he whispered, "but I'm here now, and I'm going to stay. I promise." He got out of the car. He went inside the house. Life continued, different, unexpected, imperfect, but real, true, full of meaning. And for the first time in many years, Daniel Whitmore didn't feel alone. He had a son, he had a friend, he had a strange, unconventional family, but he had it, and that was all that mattered. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.